You know, I never thought I'd be sitting here telling you this story, but after everything that happened at my son's engagement party 3 months ago, I realized some stories need to be told. Not for revenge, not for vindication, but because sometimes the truth has a way of changing everything. My name is Margaret, and I'm 58 years old. I've been a widow for 7 years now, ever since my husband Robert passed from cancer. Those were the hardest years of my life, but they taught me something important about what really matters. My son David has been my anchor through all of it. He's 29 now, works as a software engineer, and until recently, I thought I knew him better than anyone in this world. The story I'm about to tell you starts on a Saturday evening in April. David had been dating this girl, Jessica, for about 2 years. She was 26, worked in marketing, and had this way of lighting up a room when she walked in. At least, that's what I thought at first. She was beautiful, confident, and my son was absolutely smitten with her. When he called me that Tuesday morning to tell me he'd proposed, I could hear the joy in his voice through the phone. "Mom, she said yes," he practically shouted. "We're having an engagement party this Saturday at the country club. I want you to be there. I want you to meet her whole family properly." I was thrilled, of course. After losing his father, David had gone through a rough patch in his 20s. Seeing him happy again, seeing him ready to start his own family, it filled my heart with such warmth. I immediately started planning. I wanted to give them something special, something meaningful for their engagement. You see, when Robert died, he left me with quite a bit of money. Not billionaire money, mind you, but comfortable. Very comfortable. We'd been smart with our investments, and Robert had a good life insurance policy. I'd been living modestly, putting most of it away, thinking about David's future. I'd always planned to help him when the time came for a house, a wedding, maybe grandchildren someday. But here's the thing about money that I've learned over the years. It changes how people see you, and more importantly, it changes how people treat you. I'd started to notice little things about Jessica, how she'd make comments about my little house, a perfectly nice 3-bedroom ranch that Robert and I had paid off years ago, how she'd raise her eyebrows when I'd wear the same dress to 2 different events, how she'd always order the most expensive thing on the menu when we went out, then slide the check toward me with a smile. I tried to brush it off. Young people today, they're different, I told myself. They're more direct, more assertive. Maybe I was just being sensitive, but deep down, something felt off. The way she looked at me sometimes, like she was calculating something. The way she'd interrupt me when I was talking to David. The way she'd make jokes about old people when she thought I wasn't listening. Still, I pushed those feelings aside. This was my son's happiness we were talking about. If he loved her, if she made him happy, then I would find a way to love her too. That's what mothers do, right? We sacrifice our own comfort for our children's joy. So I went shopping that week. I bought a new dress, nothing too fancy, just a nice navy blue cocktail dress from Nordstrom. I got my hair done at the salon. I even bought a new pair of shoes, though my feet aren't what they used to be. I wanted to look nice for their special day. I wanted Jessica's family to see that David came from good people. The country club was beautiful that Saturday evening. They'd reserved the main dining room, with its crystal chandeliers and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the golf course. The sun was setting, casting everything in this warm, golden light. There were about 60 people there. Jessica's family, David's friends from work, some of our neighbors, my sister Joan, who'd driven in from Portland. I arrived a little early, carrying the gift I'd chosen for them. It was wrapped in elegant silver paper with a white ribbon. I'd spent days thinking about what to give them, and I'd finally settled on something that felt right, something that would show how much I cared about their future together. David met me at the door, looking so handsome in his navy suit. He hugged me tight, and for a moment it was just us, my little boy, all grown up and starting his own life. I felt that familiar tightness in my chest, pride mixed with a touch of sadness that only mothers understand. "Mom, you look beautiful," he said, and I could tell he meant it. "Come on, let me introduce you to Jessica's parents." As we walked through the room, I noticed how lovely everything looked. The tables were set with white linens and fresh flowers. There was a bar in the corner where people were already gathering, laughing and talking. A jazz trio played softly in in the background. It was elegant, tasteful, exactly the kind of party David deserved. That's when I saw her. Jessica was standing near the far wall, surrounded by what I assumed were her bridesmaids. She was wearing a stunning red dress that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. Her hair was styled in these perfect waves, and she was laughing at something one of her friends had said. She looked radiant, I'll give her that. But then our eyes met across the room and something shifted. The smile she gave me wasn't warm. It was polite, calculated. The kind of smile you give to someone you're obligated to acknowledge but don't particularly want to see. In that moment, I felt a chill run down my spine. I had no idea that in just a few hours, everything I thought I knew about my son's fiancée would change forever. The first hour of the party went smoothly enough. I mingled with the guests, shook hands with Jessica's parents, Harold and Linda, who seemed like decent people. Her father was a retired electrician. Her mother worked part-time at a local bookstore. They were warm, friendly, the kind of people you'd want as neighbors. I found myself wondering how they'd raised such a different daughter. I was chatting with my sister Joan by the bar when Jessica approached us. She moved with this confident stride like she owned the room. Up close, I could see the details of her dress. It was designer, definitely. The kind of thing that costs more than most people make in a month. "Margaret," she said, kissing my cheek in that way young people do now. "I'm so glad you could make it. You look nice." There was something in the way she said nice that made my stomach tighten, like she was surprised I could manage even that much. "Thank you, dear," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "The party is lovely. You've done a wonderful job." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Oh, David's parents helped with most of it. They're much better at these things than I am." She paused, looking me up and down. "I love your dress. Is it vintage?" Joan shifted uncomfortably beside me. The dress was new, bought specifically for this occasion, and Jessica knew it. I'd mentioned it to David just the week before when he'd asked if I needed anything for the party. "It's new, actually," I said quietly. "Oh, well, it has such a timeless quality to it," she said, and I could hear the barely concealed condescension in her voice. "Very practical." Before I could respond, David appeared at Jessica's side, sliding his arm around her waist. My son looked so happy, so proud. He was practically glowing. "Mom, what do you think of the party?" he asked, his eyes bright with excitement. "It's beautiful, sweetheart," I said, and I meant it. Despite everything, seeing my son this happy made my heart soar. Jessica leaned into him. "Your mother was just complimenting my dress. We were talking about fashion." She laughed, a sound like tinkling bells that somehow managed to sound sharp. "I was telling her how I admire people who stick to classics. There's something so reliable about it." I felt my face flush. Joan's hand found my elbow, a gentle warning to stay calm, but I could see what Jessica was doing. She was making me feel small, insignificant, like some old woman who didn't know any better, and she was doing it right in front of my son. "Jessica has great taste," David said, oblivious to the undercurrents. "She picked out everything for tonight. The flowers, the music, even the menu. Your mother must be so proud," Jessica said, her voice saccharine sweet. "David tells me you've been so supportive. It must be nice to have such a modest lifestyle. No pressure, no expectations." The word modest hit me like a slap. I looked at my son, waiting for him to say something, anything, but he just smiled, completely missing the insult his fiancée had just delivered. "I should go check on the catering," Jessica said, already turning away. "Margaret, enjoy the party, and don't worry about the gift table. I saw you brought something. I'm sure it's very thoughtful." She walked away, her heels clicking on the marble floor, leaving me standing there with Joan and David. My sister's grip on my arm had tightened, and I could see the anger in her eyes. But David was already distracted, waving at some friends from work who'd just arrived. "I'll be right back, Mom," he said, kissing my cheek. "I want to introduce them to Jessica." As he walked away, Joan leaned close to me. "Did you hear that?" she whispered. "Did you hear how she just talked to you?" I nodded, my throat tight. "I heard it, and David didn't even notice. He was standing right there, and he didn't even notice." That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about Jessica's attitude toward me. This was about my son's blindness to it. David, my sweet, intelligent son, was so besotted with this woman that he couldn't see how she was treating his own mother. The evening continued, and I tried to enjoy myself. I really did. I talked to old friends, caught up with neighbors, even managed to have a pleasant conversation with Jessica's parents. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, judged, found wanting. Every time I looked across across the room, Jessica was there, laughing with her friend, her hand possessively on David's arm, and every time our eyes met, that same cold smile, like she was playing some game that only she knew the rules to. Then came the totes. David's best friend from college, Marcus, stood up first. He told a funny story about how David had been so nervous about proposing that he'd practiced the speech on Marcus's dog. Everyone laughed, including me. It was sweet, genuine, the kind of moment that reminded me why I loved my son so much. Then Jessica's maid of honor, a perfectly coiffed blonde named Brittany, took the microphone. She talked about how Jessica deserved the best of everything, how she'd always been destined for greatness, how David was lucky to have won her heart. The speech was polished, practiced, but it felt hollow somehow, like she was reading from a script. Finally, it was David's turn. He stood up, his face flushed with happiness, and maybe a little too much champagne. He talked about how Jessica had changed his life, how she'd made him want to be a better man. He thanked her parents for raising such an amazing daughter. He thanked his friends for being there. Then he looked at me. And of course, I have to thank my mom. She's been my rock through everything. After Dad died, she held our family together. She's the strongest person I know, and I'm so grateful she's here tonight to celebrate with us. The room erupted in applause. I felt tears prick my eyes, my heart swelling with love for my son. For a moment, everything felt right again. But then I saw Jessica's face. She was clapping, smiling, but her eyes were cold, almost annoyed, like David praising me was somehow taking something away from her. That's when I knew, with absolute certainty, that this wasn't going to end well. The party was winding down, and I was getting ready to leave when it happened. I was at the gift table, making sure my present was properly placed among the others, when I overheard Jessica talking to her bridesmaids near the bar. They were far enough away that they thought no one could hear them, but the acoustics in that room carried their voices perfectly. "God, did you see David's mother tonight?" Jessica was saying, her voice dripping with disdain. "That sad little dress, those ancient shoes. You'd think someone would have taught her how to dress for an occasion like this." My blood ran cold. I stood frozen, my hand still on the gift table, unable to move. "She seems sweet, though," one of the bridesmaids said hesitantly. Jessica laughed, but it was nothing like the tinkling sound she'd made earlier. This was harsh, ugly. "Sweet? She's pathetic. Do you know she lives in this tiny house and drives a car that's older than I am? And David expects me to pretend like she's some kind of saint just because his father died. Please, Jessica, that's kind of harsh," another bridesmaid said. "She lost her husband, and she raised David by herself. Oh, please. She's been playing the widow card for years. Poor little Margaret, all alone in her little house with her little life. Do you know what she gave us as an engagement gift? Probably something from Target. I saw the way she wrapped it. So cheap looking. I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. The gift I'd chosen so carefully, wrapped so lovingly, reduced to something cheap and thoughtless. But it was more than that. It was the casual cruelty in her voice, the way she dismissed my entire life as if it meant nothing. "I mean, David's great," she continued, "but the family baggage is going to be a problem. She's going to expect to be included in everything. Probably wants to be grandmother of the year when we have kids. Can you imagine? I'm going to have to set some serious boundaries." "What are you going to do?" Brittany asked. "I'm going to make it clear that once David and I are married, his priorities need to shift. She's had her time as the most important woman in his life. Now it's my turn." That's when I felt the rage. Not anger, not hurt, but pure, white-hot rage. This woman, this selfish, entitled woman, was planning to cut me out of my son's life. She was going to manipulate David, play on his love for her, to push his own mother aside. I turned around, my hands shaking, and walked straight toward them. I didn't care who saw me. I didn't care what anyone thought. I was done being polite, done being the sweet, accommodating mother who took insults with a smile. "Excuse me," I said, my voice cutting through their conversation like a knife. Jessica spun around, her face going pale when she saw me standing there. Her friends scattered like startled birds, suddenly very interested in their drinks. "Margaret," she said, trying to recover. "I didn't see you there." "No, I'm sure you didn't," I replied, my voice steady despite the fury burning in my chest. "I heard what you said. Every word." She had the audacity to look confused. "I don't know what you mean." About my dress, about my house, about my car, about me being pathetic and playing the widow card. I stepped closer, and she actually took a step back. About cutting me out of David's life once you're married. You misunderstood, she said. Her voice was shaking now. I was just... No, Jessica. I understood perfectly. You think I'm some sad, pathetic old woman who doesn't deserve respect. You think my life is small and meaningless. You think you can just push me aside like I'm nothing. People were starting to notice now. Conversations around us had stopped. I could see David across the room, starting to move toward us with a concerned expression. Mrs. Peterson, please, Jessica said, trying to salvage the situation. Let's not make a scene. A scene? I laughed, but it wasn't pleasant. Oh, honey, you haven't seen anything yet. David reached us just then, his face flushed with confusion. Mom? Jessica? What's going on? Jessica immediately moved to his side, her hand on his arm, her voice taking on that sweet, innocent tone. Your mother seems upset about something. I think maybe she's had a long day. I watched my son's face, looking for any sign that he could see through her act, but he just looked concerned, worried about his mother causing a problem at his engagement party. Mom, are you okay? He asked gently. This was my moment. I could tell him everything. I could expose Jessica for who she really was. I could try to open his eyes to the woman he was about to marry. But as I looked at him, I realized something. He wouldn't believe me. He was so in love, so blinded by her beauty and charm, that he'd think I was just being a difficult, jealous mother. He'd choose her over me, and I'd lose him forever. So instead, I smiled. A cold, calculating smile that made Jessica's face go white. I'm fine, sweetheart, I said, my voice perfectly calm. Jessica and I were just having a little chat about gifts. Speaking of which, I think it's time I gave you yours. I walked over to the gift table, picked up my silver-wrapped present, and walked back to them. The room had gone quiet now, everyone sensing the tension but not understanding it. I wanted to give you something special, I said, holding out the box. Something that shows how much I care about your future together. David took the box with a smile, his earlier concern fading. Mom, you didn't have to get us anything expensive. Oh, but I did, I said, keeping my eyes on Jessica's face. I really did. He tore off the wrapping paper, opened the box, and pulled out a small leather-bound booklet. He looked at it, confused. What is it? He asked. It's a real estate listing, I said, my voice carrying across the silent room. For a house on Maple Street. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, 2-car garage. Beautiful neighborhood. Perfect for starting a family. David stared at the booklet, then at me. Mom, I don't understand. I bought it for you, I said simply. As a wedding gift. The deed is in both your name. It's paid for, completely. No mortgage, no payments. Just keys and a future. The room erupted. People started talking at once, exclaiming over the generosity of the gift. Jessica's mouth had fallen open, her face cycling through shock, disbelief, and something that might have been shame. You bought us a house? David whispered. I did. A $400,000 house. With cash. I looked directly at Jessica. I hope it's not too cheap for you, dear. But I wasn't done. Not even close. The silence that followed was deafening. David stood there, clutching the real estate listing, his face a map of confusion and shock. Jessica looked like she'd seen a ghost, her perfect composure finally cracking. Mom, David said slowly, I don't understand. Where did you get the money for this? I smiled, but it wasn't warm. It was the smile of someone who'd been pushed too far and was finally pushing back. Oh, sweetheart, there's a lot you don't understand. I could feel the weight of 60 pairs of eyes on me. The jazz trio had stopped playing. Even the catering staff had paused in their work to listen. This was it. The moment I'd been building toward without even realizing it. You see, everyone here tonight seems to think I'm just some sad, pathetic widow living in her little house with her little life. I let my gaze sweep the room before settling on Jessica. But what they don't know is that your father and I were very good with money. Very good indeed. Jessica's face had gone from white to gray. She was starting to understand that she'd made a terrible mistake. When Robert died, I continued, my voice carrying clearly through the silent room, he left me with quite a bit more than anyone realized. We'd been investing since we were your age, David. Real estate, stocks, bonds. Your father was brilliant with numbers, and I learned from the best. I reached into my purse and pulled out a manila envelope I'd been carrying all evening. This is the deed to the house on Maple Street, but it's not the only property I own. I have a portfolio worth just over $2 million. The gasp that went through the room was audible. I saw Harold and Linda exchange shocked glances. David's best friend Marcus nearly dropped his drink, but I kept my eyes on Jessica, watching her perfect facade crumble piece by piece. $2 million, I repeated, savoring the words. Not exactly what you'd call pathetic, is it, Jessica? Jessica. She opened her mouth to speak, but no sound came out. For the first time all evening, she had nothing to say. You want to know what's really pathetic? I continued, my voice getting stronger. It's a 26-year-old woman who thinks she can insult her future mother-in-law and get away with it. It's someone who judges people by their clothes and their car instead of their character. It's a person who plans to cut her husband's mother out of his life because she's too selfish to share his love. Mom, David said, his voice strained. What are you talking about? Ask your fiancée, I said, never taking my eyes off Jessica. Ask her what she said about me not 30 minutes ago. Ask her about my cheap gift and my pathetic life. Ask her about the boundaries she's planning to set once you're married. David turned to Jessica, and for the first time, I saw doubt in his eyes. Jess, what is she talking about? Jessica's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Her carefully constructed world was falling apart, and she knew it. David, she's taking everything out of context. I never said. She said I was pathetic, I interrupted. She said I was playing the widow card. She said my engagement gift was probably from Target and looked cheap. She said she was going to make it clear that once you're married, your priorities needed to shift away from your mother. The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. David stared at Jessica, his face cycling through confusion, hurt, and growing anger. You said that? He asked, his voice barely above a whisper. David, let me explain, Jessica said, reaching for his arm, but he pulled away. You said my mother was pathetic. You called her a widow playing cards. You criticized her gift. His voice was getting louder with each word. I was talking to my friends. People say things when they're stressed. I didn't mean. You meant every word, I said quietly. I heard the tone in your voice. I saw the look on your face. You enjoyed it. You enjoyed tearing me down. That's when David did something I'll never forget. He looked around the room, at all the shocked faces, at Jessica's parents who looked mortified, at his friends who were staring in disbelief. Then he looked at Jessica. Give me the ring, he said. What? Jessica's voice was a whisper. Give me the ring. Now. David, please, we can talk about this. We can work through this. I love you. If you loved me, he said, his voice breaking. You would have loved my mother. She's the most important person in my life. She raised me, sacrificed for me, loved me unconditionally. And you thought she was pathetic. Jessica was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. David, please. I'm sorry. I was wrong. I was so wrong. The ring, Jessica. With shaking hands, she slipped the engagement ring off her finger and placed it in David's palm. He closed his fingers around it, then looked at me. Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't see what was happening. I'm sorry I let her treat you that way. I felt my own tears starting then. Not tears of anger or hurt, but tears of relief. My son, my beautiful, wonderful son, had chosen me. He'd seen through Jessica's mask and chosen family over infatuation. It's okay, sweetheart, I said, opening my arm. He came to me then, like he was 10 years old again, and I held him while he cried. I love you, Mom, he whispered. I'm so sorry. I love you too, baby. I love you too. Behind us, I could hear Jessica's broken sobs, her friends trying to comfort her, the whispered conversation starting up around the room. But I didn't care about any of that. All I cared about was my son in my arms, safe and sound and mine again. The engagement party was over, but for me, it felt like a beginning. 3 months have passed since that night at the country club, and I'm sitting in my little house as I tell you this story. But it's not the same house Jessica mocked. David and I have made some changes. The real estate listing I gave them that night, it was real. I had bought that house, cash, as a wedding gift. But after everything that happened, David couldn't bring himself to live there. Too many memories, he said. Too much of Jessica's dream wrapped up in those walls. So we sold it, and with the money, plus some additional funds from my portfolio, we bought a bigger house together. David lives in the guest wing, and I have my own space. It's perfect for both of us. Independence when we want it. Family when we need it. You might think it's strange, a 29-year-old man living with his mother. But after everything we've been through, we've learned that family isn't something to be taken for granted. It's something to be protected, cherished, held close. David is dating again. There's a lovely woman named Sarah who works at the library. She's kind, intelligent, and the first time I met her, she brought me flowers and asked about my garden. She listens when I talk, includes me in conversation, and treats me like a person worth knowing. The difference is night and day. She's nothing like Jessica, David said to me just last week. She actually wants to get to know you. She asks about Dad, about our family history. She cares about the things that matter to me. I think about Jessica sometime. I wonder if she learned anything from that night. I wonder if she regrets her word, her action, her choices. I heard through the grapevine that she moved to another city, started fresh somewhere else. I hope she finds happiness. I really do. But more than that, I hope she finds humility. The truth is, I didn't buy that house to show off my wealth. I bought it because I loved my son and wanted to give him the best possible start to his married life. The money was never the point. The point was love, sacrifice, putting your family first. But Jessica forced me to use it as a weapon, and I'm not sorry I did. Sometimes people need to be shown the consequences of their cruelty. Sometimes the only way to make someone understand that they've hurt you is to show them exactly what they've thrown away. I've learned something important about myself in these past 3 months. I'm not the sad, pathetic widow that Jessica saw. I'm a woman who survived loss, who raised a good man, who built a life of meaning and purpose. I'm someone who deserves respect, not because of my bank account, but because of my character. And I've learned something about my son, too. He's stronger than I thought, braver than I imagined. It takes courage to walk away from someone you love when you realize they're not who you thought they were. It takes wisdom to choose family over romance, substance over surface. The house on Maple Street sold within a week. The new owners are a young couple with a baby on the way. They sent me a thank you note, telling me how happy they are there. It makes me smile to think of that house filled with love and laughter, with a family that appreciates what they have. As for the engagement ring, David never told me what he did with it. I suspect he returned it to the jeweler, but I've never asked. Some things are better left unspoken. People ask me sometimes if I regret what I did that night, if I think I should have handled it differently, more quietly, more diplomatically. But the truth is, I don't regret it for a second. Jessica's cruelty wasn't a momentary lapse in judgment. It was a window into her soul, and I'm grateful I saw it before it was too late. My son deserves better than someone who would mock his mother behind her back. He deserves someone who will love all of him, including his family, his history, his roots. He deserves someone who understands that when you marry a person, you marry their story too. The money? It's just money. It's nice to have, certainly. It provides security and options, but it's not what makes me wealthy. What makes me wealthy is my relationship with my son, the memories of my husband, the friendships I've built over the years, the life I've created from the ashes of loss. Jessica saw an old woman in a simple dress and assumed she knew everything about me. She judged me by my appearance, my choices, my quiet lifestyle. She made the mistake of thinking that modest meant poor, that humble meant weak, that grieving meant pathetic. She was wrong on all counts. I'm 58 years old and I'm just getting started. I have a son who loves me, a comfortable home, financial security, and most importantly, the knowledge that I stood up for myself when it mattered most. I didn't let someone else's cruelty define me. I didn't shrink away from confrontation when my dignity was on the line. The engagement party was supposed to be a celebration of new beginning. In a way, it was, just not the way anyone expected. My son is happy now, truly happy, with someone who deserves him. I'm proud of the man he's become, proud of the choice he made that night, and I'm proud of myself for having the courage to speak up, to fight back, to show the world that kindness shouldn't be mistaken for weakness. So to anyone listening who might be facing their own Jessica, their own moment of cruel judgment, I want you to remember this. You are worth more than other people's opinions. You are valuable beyond their narrow definition, and sometimes the best gift you can give someone is the truth about who they really are. The engagement party is over. The real story, it's just beginning. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that we all deserve to be treated with respect, regardless of how we look, where we live, or what we drive. And I hope it reminds you that family, real family, is worth fighting for, even if it means giving them a shocking gift they'll never forget.